So it's about the middle of August when I'm recording this. We're getting ready to head into fall. And the COVID-19 pandemic is still going strong. In fact, here in the United States, it's really out of control. Unlike many places in the world which managed to have brought it down, we haven't done a very good job with that. And you can pick whatever reason you want for that. So I thought I'd go ahead and do a short video of maybe some preparations you might do as we go toward fall, because I do think things might get a little more challenging with the upcoming election and with the number of cases growing quickly. So I have 10 things that I wanted to recommend people consider. And your case may be different, so just consider them. You don't certainly have to follow them if they don't make sense. So the first one is be prepared for the COVID-19 pandemic to get worse. Most of the experts I've seen all say it's going to get worse this fall. There's going to be a lot more cases, and that may have implications. For example, we may go into some kind of a shutdown again, which might affect your ability to earn an income. Might make it harder to get groceries or other things, so be sure you have enough supplies on hand. And so it could impact hospitals. You know, you may be able to have difficulty getting to see your doctor or getting hospitalized if the beds are full. There's a lot of ways it can impact you, and I just want you to really consider that in the next 3 or 4 months, things could get quite a bit worse, and you should start thinking about that. So next, and I'm reluctant to offer this one because I'm not a financial expert, but we're entering a time of, we're already in it, but we're entering a time of even greater uncertainty. And with uncertainty comes financial risk. And so my suggestion to folks is if you have a lot of money, you have retirement accounts or other investments, you might consider taking the time right now while the stock market's doing well to rebalance them a little bit. I'm not saying pull out of all of investments or anything like that, but maybe rebalance them with an eye on maybe being a little bit more risk averse, okay? Because I think as we head toward the election, there could be some panic selling, there could be some things that happen. The stock market's very highly valued right now considering the uncertainty in the economy right now. So you might consider rebalancing a little bit, at least for a while, just to put yourself on a little bit safer footing for a little while, okay? That's just my advice. I mentioned about stocking up on consumables because of the COVID-19. I think that's just a really good idea. You know, I know we stocked up our house and our freezers with lots of extra food when the pandemic was first getting going. And what I noticed is over time, we depleted some of those reserves. You know, we're using them. It prevented us from having to go out as much. But over time, we didn't necessarily restock them as well as we initially had. And so what I'm recommending is, you know, sort of start fresh and go back out and restock your supplies. Get yourself ready in case there is another national shutdown or a state shutdown where you live. And make sure that you have on hand what you need to have in terms of food and other supplies so that you don't have to go out and take greater risk unnecessarily. The next one's sort of an odd one in terms of a preparation. It's more of just a piece of advice, okay? And my advice is to avoid political arguments or COVID-19 related arguments with people. Both of these are highly divisive. There are the pro-Trumpers, the anti-Trumpers, the people who think their liberties are being stepped on by the government's reaction to COVID-19, and the people who think that others aren't doing nearly enough to protect their fellow citizens. I get all of it, okay? And I have my own opinions about it, but that isn't what this is about. My recommendation is stay clear of that. There's no reason to put yourself and your family in danger of engaging in an argument like that you're not going to sway anybody, all right? You take steps to safeguard yourself and try and avoid those sort of meaningless arguments that aren't going to benefit anybody. It might make you feel better to get something off your chest, but it's not going to change anybody's mind, and all it does really is put you at some risk, okay? So in this time of heightened uncertainty, a lot of stress right now, I would advise you not engage in those arguments, just sort of steer clear of them. The next one is get a little bit of cash, and how much a little bit is depending on you and your circumstances, but get some cash and have some cash handy, all right? Put it away wherever safe. Don't advertise it to anybody, but have some cash on hand in case there's a disruption to the financial systems if the COVID-19 or the election starts causing a lot of problems, rioting or other issues, that you might not be able to get to your money very easily, all right? So have some cash on hand. That's a good piece of advice anyway as a preparation, but certainly in this time of uncertainty, I think having some money, maybe a little more than you normally would, is a good idea. Next, identify a place where you can go to safely retreat if you need to. So depending on where you live, how likely that would be. If you're in rural Kansas, it's unlikely that riots are going to be out in the street and forcing you to get out of there. But maybe in a major city, you could feel unsafe either due to the COVID-19 pandemic getting completely out of control, or to some kind of rioting or marching or other things that make you feel unsafe in your environment. And so be thinking about where you would go, and try and, of course, get out of town and get to that safe place before the situation gets too dire. Along that lines, you'll want to keep your car fully fueled with gas, or nearly so. So don't let, if things get really bad, it may be difficult to refuel the vehicle and get out of town. So you always want to have enough gas to get at least a couple hundred miles down the road, which will usually get you out the worst of it. You don't want to end up being, stalled in traffic somewhere with an eighth of a tank of gas, and you end up being like many people during these crises where you run out of gas on the interstate. So make sure your car is fully fueled, or nearly so that you have the ability to get out of town. And along that same front, consider having, like a grab-and-go bag or something in your car. And that could be anything from just a pair of, a little change of clothes, and some shoes and some toiletries, to a full-up grab-and-go bag with lots of supplies, survival equipment, and so forth. It's really up to you. But having just some basic things in your vehicle so that if you had to get out of town, as it were, you wouldn't necessarily have to return home for, at least just the bare necessities. All right. So having some things in your car like that is a good idea. It might be a time, especially with this COVID-19, to consider getting one of these anti-tracking pouches for your phone. Now, I've shown these before on video. I've got one right here. I just think it feels like right now, like there's a lot of government oversight, overreach really occurring, and that could get worse. And even products like this might ultimately be banned. There might be some kind of restrictions put on even making products like that. So my suggestion is get yourself a pouch like that you can, if you want to disappear and not be tracked through your cell phone, you could do so. You may never use it. It may end up just being a wasted $25 or something, but I think it's a reasonable precaution given where we are right now. Again, you can get these if you want. I sell them. They're $25 on my website. Mine are custom made and tested, but other people have them too. Feel free to get them wherever you want. I just think it's a reasonable precaution. All right. Next, you might consider getting some self-defense insurance. All right. I don't sell that. I have self-defense insurance. I looked at all of the self-defense insurance companies out there. It's probably been about 4 or 5 years ago, so some things have changed. I know the NRA used to have one, and I think they have since maybe discontinued their product, although I'm not sure of that. I use a product called CCW Safe. It was the one that I found for sort of the cost benefit was just the right amount for me. It wasn't too expensive, and you got quite a bit of benefit from it. There are some that are more expensive, and there are some that are much cheaper. It was just the one I found for me that seemed to work well. You can check it out or not. I don't get anything either way if you get it or not. But you might just think about some kind of self-defense insurance. The reason being is you could imagine a scenario around election time especially where there's already a lot of stress due to this coronavirus, and then you have to, maybe people are out rioting or marching, they can't get money because of jobs, Congress is stalled in terms of relief, and there would be a lot of uncertainty. And if people go out in riots and other things like that, you may find yourself in danger. And you may, unlikely, but it's possible you may end up finding yourself in some life-threatening circumstance that you have to defend yourself. And having some type of self-defense insurance could really make your life a whole lot easier. Having somebody in your corner to help cover those costs, both civil and criminal, if you end up in, let's say, you end up defending yourself, maybe having to shoot someone, it would be really a good investment if you had something like that at the time. Are you likely to need it? No. That's true of all insurance, right? You're not likely to need it. Maybe even less so for this kind of insurance. But it's not terribly expensive, and if you're going to carry a firearm especially, you really ought to have some kind of self-defense insurance. So if you don't, I'd encourage you to take a look around for some, maybe give it some consideration. And then finally, there's a lot of concern over voting, and that's going to continue right up until the election, about whether or not our votes are going to be properly counted. And no matter who wins, the other side's going to scream and holler that they were treated unfairly in some way. And so what you might consider doing is, everybody wants to vote, I think. Good citizens always want to vote. I think this year in particular, everyone should get out and vote who's eligible. And it doesn't matter which candidate, you just need to exercise your right and get out and vote. But you might consider doing these early votings to prevent having to go and be in these long lines of voters in November. And I know, like in my state, in Virginia, they have this in-person absentee voting system where you can vote in September and October. And so you can vote early, but you do go in person and you do cast your vote. So I know there's going to be a lot of mail-in voting as well, and that's a little risky, right? You're never really sure with all the disruptions in the Postal Service how that's going to be counted. Will your vote actually end up being counted, or will somebody contest it? So, my suggestion is look for in your state to see if there is early voting, and if there is, it might relieve a lot of stress and maybe even a little bit of danger if you voted early. All right, so give that some consideration. So anyway, that's kind of my 10 just thoughts off the cuff, recommendations of where we're at right now. Again, this is August. Things are only getting worse in terms of the number of cases in our country. The election's coming up in just a few months. It's going to get stressful. And so maybe taking a few steps to help yourself be better prepared would let you sleep a little bit better. So anyway, I hope some of these maybe you found to be useful. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments.